There is this one line that I keep seeing these days on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube comments, which is the hot take of 2025 that Modi 3.0 is somehow beginning to look like UPA 2.0. And I just wanted to ask, how old are you exactly? No, seriously, if you're under the age of 25, you probably didn't live through the UPA 2.0 era like many of us did. You didn't feel the daily frustration, the helplessness, the national embarrassment. You only saw the Wikipedia summary. Saying Modi 3.0 is UPA 2.0 is like saying a glitchy iPhone 15 is the same as a landline because both can make phone calls. One has minor bugs, the other barely functioned. So let's talk. Let's really talk about what it meant to grow up in UPA India when scams were the wallpaper and the government just said, sorry, we'll look into it.
We are meeting today in the aftermath of the brutal and inhuman attack by left-wing extremists on Congress leaders and workers and their security personnel in Chhattisgarh a few days back. Such violence has no place in our democracy.
India's new Home Minister visits India's latest battle zone. In first visit after the terror strike, P. Chidambaram was blunt, admitting that mistakes were made.
Every evening, without fail, there was a new scam on the news. It became a genre. Coalgate, 2G Spectrum, Commonwealth Games, Adarsh Housing, chopper scams, even trucks for the Indian Army were a part of it. 1 lakh crore, 2 lakh crore, 3 lakh crore. India's GDP was growing, but only for the select few. We were kids watching all of this unfold like it was a political version of CID. Accusation, denial, committee, and finally no action. And every single time, the Prime Minister looked into the camera and said absolutely nothing. You remember those days? Then came Mumbai 26/11. 3 days, 10 terrorists, hundreds of people died. We watched on TV, helpless. NSG commandos flying in late, hotels set on fire, ordinary Mumbaikars losing their lives. The Home Minister at the time was more worried about changing clothes between appearances than responding to the country's biggest terror attack. We did not have the language to explain it back then. But what we saw was a state that had no spine. It could not stop the attack. It could not respond to it. And it did not want to talk about it once the flames were out. We've seen people today complaining about onions costing 60 rupees a kilo, but under UPA, even thinking about vegetables felt like a luxury. In 2013, retail inflation was 12.17%, food inflation 14.72%, cereal inflation over 13%. Petrol was subsidized, yes, but oil was more than 100 rupees a barrel, and our fiscal deficits was stacking up like a credit card bill after a breakup. The rupee fell 15% in a single year, and unlike today, there were no forex buffers, no public confidence, no digital systems to plug the leaks. Inflation was so bad that even the RBI stopped pretending that they could fix it. They just sat back and hoped that people wouldn't try it. By 2011, the anger boiled over, and for once, it wasn't party-based, and it was people-based. Anna Hazare launched a fast. Arvind Kejriwal had hair. Jantar Mantar turned into the new parliament. The Congress response, arrest Anna Hazare. Because nothing says democracy like arresting a man on a hunger strike. The moment changed the nation. It was the beginning of the end of the UPA's moral authority. Let's talk internal security. Between 2005 and 2014, 14,862 Naxal incidents, nearly 7,000 deaths, Dantewada, Dharba Valley, CRPF jawans being slaughtered, Congress leaders killed in ambushes. Manmohan Singh called on Naxalism India's biggest internal security threat, and still it took 5 years for the government to even formulate a plan to tackle it. Home Minister P. Chidambaram launched Operation Green Hunt, but Digvijay Singh, his own party colleague, opposed it. Meanwhile, Jawans were dying in India's jungles, and Maoists were holding public rallies. Then we had no Rafales, no Chinooks, no border roads. In fact, when asked about border infrastructure, Defense Minister A.K. Antony literally said, "We kept it underdeveloped purposefully so that China will not use it. You don't have to be a Chanakya to know that is not a strategy to have. That's cowardice with an official rubber stamp. Today, we've got the Atal Tunnel, all-weather border roads, weapons platforms delivered on schedule, infrastructure that isn't scared of its own shadow. Now let's talk about the present. Yes, there may be inflation. Yes, the economy is a little unstable. Yes, the coalition may also be a little messy. But where are the scams? Where are the missing files? Where are the defense procurement black holes? None of that is happening today in Modi 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0. Instead, urban terror attacks are down to 1 in 4 years. Civilian deaths from terror are down by 70%. Naxal presence is collapsing and it's almost on its deathbed. Roads, banks, internet going deeper into red zones. Subsidy is being delivered in digital welfare. And you don't need a political broker to get an LPG connection. That's not perfection, but that's not UPA either. Fiscal deficits under UPA 2 hit 6.6% in a global slowdown. Under Modi, peaked at 9.2% during COVID, dropped back fast. Under UPA, average inflation was 8.2%. Rupee crashed 15% in 1 year. Fake fuel prices, ballooning subsidies. Under Modi, inflation is well below 5%, which has had an average over the last 11 years. Rupee fall 13% over 2 years. Real pricing, tighter control and better reserves. Also, tax collections today are based on transparency and broad-based. More people paying, more digital tracking and less evasion. No more bribes in envelopes and government tenders scribbled on napkins. Look, I'm not here to defend this government's policies. Critique is fair, critique is necessary, but false equivalence isn't. UPA 2.0 wasn't about mistakes, it was about paralysis. It was a government that knew what was wrong and still chose to do nothing. Modi 3.0 certainly has its problems, but the ship is moving. The compass is still in his hands. So the next time someone says Modi 3.0 feels like UPA 2.0, ask them, where were you in 2011? If they say I was in 7th standard, tell them to Google and not gaslight you instead.